brilliant people. So earlier today on social media, I saw a young woman really complaining about her husband, and, you know, fair enough, but because he'd cleaned up the glasses, but he hadn't put away, I think it was pizza boxes and the dishes. He hadn't cleaned those, he just cleaned the glasses. And, you know, she was incensed to the point that she was saying that it was a form of abuse. You know, fair enough. I mean, if my father had asked me to do the dishes and I'd done that, he probably would have called it dumb insolence. But the thing is, I don't know that it is abuse. Now, obviously, I saw this like 1 minute clip out of this young woman's life over something she was very obviously irritated about. So, look, I don't know her whole story, but I do have a question. Is it really abuse, or is it simply miscommunication? Because in relationships, you know, as I say, our relationships are founded on our commonalities, but they grow from our differences. And one of the biggest things that we need to be aware of is that if we're not really paying attention to our patterns and our partner's patterns, sometimes we can end up in, you know, a bit of drama or a bit of a codependent situation without really realizing it. Because one of the keys to a healthy interdependent relationship is being able to recognize the patterns of our partners. And the reason why I wanted to talk about this in particular is because this is a pattern that I'm very familiar with. I'm used to seeing it, you know, in my own relationships. I'm used to seeing it with clients' relationships. And the thing is that there are two very common patterns, and they can actually seem to be very different. They both work in their own way, but they can seem to be very different. And you can think about these as, in stereotypically, you know, the male sort of side of things, because that kind of, you know, what is sometimes called the male brain tends to be very focused. You know, it's the whole idea that, you know, the men were the hunters. I don't want to get into the history of the fact that, well, actually there were female hunters, because the archaeological record actually shows that there were. I'm just trying to make a point here, which is that some of us, stereotypically more those who are, you know, born male, they actually tend to be very focused. They're very detail oriented. Sometimes I call this the micro view, like they see the tiny things. Whereas the other view, which is more like an overview or the macro view, stereotypically this goes with the, you know, the kind of brain that you get when you're born female. So the thing is that these two patterns, being, you know, either working with the micro, with the details, or working with the macro, which, you know, the overview, we tend to be much stronger in one than the other, and it can affect a lot of things. So, you know, you know, I don't know if this young woman will ever see this video, of course, but if she does, this is the same thing as I suggest with my clients if they're having this issue at home. It's like if you ask a guy to do the dishes, he will tend to do the dishes that are in the sink. He won't go through the house, collect up all the dishes. And he won't, you know, do all of those, whether it's in the dishwasher, you know, put those in the dishwasher and then, you know, stack the clean plates away. And, you know, if there's anything that doesn't go in the dishwasher, wash those by hand and wipe down the benches, maybe even sweep the floor. He's not going to do all that. He'll just do the dishes in the sink, unless you remember that, you know, if he's the kind of guy that has this kind of very sort of focused brain, detailed brain, you actually then have to list each one of those tasks, because to him, each one is a separate task. Whereas to someone who has one of those overview brains, you ask them to do the dishes, not just automatically do all the things that come under that umbrella. And the reason why understanding this pattern is really important is not only does it save a lot of angst, but when we communicate with our partners, it does two things. Like, you know, if you have a partner, if you have an overview brain, like I do, and you have a partner who has a detailed brain, you just know to list all those things. And importantly, you also know that one of the reasons why people who do have an overview brain can sometimes end up feeling very much out of exchange in a relationship is because the other person, you know, if we list, well, you know, I do the dishes, so to our, you know, we're just listing one task. Whereas, you know, to, you know, someone with a detailed brain, if they've done what we've done, you know, we've done, I've lost, you know, 4 or 5 tasks, whatever that is. So we actually have to get, you know, learn to respect their pattern and list all of those tasks out, because that makes it easier to, you know, for both people to really appreciate what the other person is doing, and also to, you know, facilitate the other person truly helping. And also, you know, for those who have the detailed brain, it's really important to remember that if you ask your partner to do something, like, can you pick up the toys, please? And your partner just goes, ah! It's because asking them to pick up the toys, I mean, from their point of view, they see it as picking up all the toys, you know, taking them back into the kids' bedrooms, putting them away, tidying up the kids' bedrooms, vacuuming all the floors. Now, but if you have a detailed brain, it literally just means pick up the toys, or at least get them off the floor, so that, you know, when they come out of the home office, they don't trip over the toys. So if someone with a detailed brain asks somebody with an overview brain to do something, and, you know, they don't get a good reception, it may be because you don't realize you're asking them, you know, what they're hearing is a much bigger thing than what you think that you're asking. So you can then learn to go, oh, no, I just mean, you know, can we keep the floor outside the home office clear? Because that's a much smaller task. So, understanding our partner's patterns. And of course, you know, I've been talking about this in terms of, you know, personal, intimate relationships. But it goes for all of our relationships, you know, when we're, you know, with friends, but particularly at work, you know, because having that combination of being able to see the details and being able to see the overviews, it's one of the ways that we really do grow from our differences. Because if someone like me is, you know, sometimes there might be details that I might miss. So having someone to spot those for me is great. And then someone who's really good at the details, they might go down one of those detail rabbit holes and not really understand whether they're staying on track or not. So particularly at work, also, you know, obviously in our relationships, being able to understand each other's patterns means that as a team, everyone, you know, it's a lot stronger. But it only gets to be stronger if we can appreciate each other's patterns. So that's what I wanted to talk to you about today. The fact that, yeah, of course, one of the ways that we learn from each other, one of the ways that we get to embrace diversity, even within our own relationships, like how our partner is different from us, is by starting to understand, you know, their patterns. And as I said, one of the most common patterns is that overview, sort of macro view versus the detailed micro view. So have a think. If you have any questions or comments about the pattern that runs in your relationships, put them in the comments below. And as always, remember that you're brilliant.